So Seth, here's the question. Should Christmas, the celebration of the birth of a Jewish baby, be considered as a Jewish holiday?
That's a really good question, Golan. And I guess Isaiah the prophet would probably say...
Isaiah the prophet from the
yes, probably. In fact, we should read his very famous prophecy about the birth of the Messiah, okay? It was something he was excited about. So Isaiah chapter 9, verses 6 and 7 in the English. In the Hebrew, it's verses 5 and 6, but we'll read the English. For a child will be born to us, a son will be given to us, and the government will rest on his shoulders, and his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Eternal Father, Prince of Peace. There will be no end to the increase of his government or of peace on the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it with justice and righteousness from then on and forevermore. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will accomplish this.
Wow, man, I mean, that's an amazing passage. You know, I'm looking at it right now. And I think in Isaiah day, maybe even today, the world puts its hope in the might, in the strength of conquering our enemies and, you know, armies and might to bring peace. But Isaiah, on the other hand, found all the hope that we need in the birth of a Jewish child, a Jewish baby. And from what I'm reading now, this baby is no ordinary child. It is clear from the 4 sets of his names, his titles that he receives, that each set of names carries or expressing a divine actions and attributes through which this infant will influence Isaiah's last day vision. I mean, what's the connection between the names and the last day vision that Isaiah foresees?
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head, Golan, and that is we wouldn't typically think of world peace being brought in through the birth of a baby, right? And yet that's what Isaiah focuses on. And there's actually something that's typically overlooked, the important relationship between verses 6 and 7. Verse 6 actually provides these 4 sets of names, and then verse 7 actually unpacks their meaning, and it does so beautifully in Hebrew poetry in what's called in verse order, right? So the child is called, we'll start from back to front, from the last to the first. The child is called Eternal Father. Actually, Aviad can also mean the source of eternity.
Yep.
Right? Which is pretty impressive for a baby. He's the source of eternity. And he's also called Prince of Peace, verse 6, because verse 7 says there will be no end, right? So, source of eternity, right? There will be no end to the increase of his government or of peace. And so here that name is unpacked. In verse 6, he's also called Mighty God. Why? Because in verse 7, because he has the power to establish and uphold an eternal kingdom. And this whole notion of establishing and upholding in power is tied directly to God's abilities in Psalm 65, verse 6. And then finally, the first name on the list, he's called Wonderful Counselor. Now, typically we think of counselor here as kind of this wonderful psychologist or wonderful psychiatrist, but that's not what counsel means here. Counsel means to make plans and to do wonderful plans, like in Isaiah 25:1, is actually to make plans that no one can stop.
Almost
no one
like
can
a
thwart.
decree? Like
It's a decree. It's a divine decree. And so we see that this child is called Wonderful Counselor. Why? The end of verse 7, because the zeal of the Lord of hosts will accomplish this. Let there be no doubts. This baby will accomplish everything Isaiah and the world actually dreams of.
That's amazing. Now I can understand why many Christians all around the world, you know, put aside all their worries for one day, at least one day a year, and find hope and consolation in the birth of a Jewish baby. You know, and of course we know that Isaiah probably didn't recognize all the traditions that have to do with Christmas, but for the birth of the Jewish baby, he would probably be the first one to stand and sing that famous Christmas carol?
Yeah,
Joy to the World?
I think so. I think he'd be singing the loudest and the clearest and most excitedly.
So can you read the
Yeah,
words of that song?
of course.
And I can almost imagine Isaiah singing it.
Maybe he wrote the song. Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing.
Amen.